You were taught to be stronger, to try harder, to make life go your way. That if you became successful enough, loved enough, safe enough, peace would come. Yet, in the quietest nights when no one is around, why does your heart still feel empty? Why in the darkness of your room do you still hear something heavy beating in your chest, as if a part of you is struggling just to stay alive? The truth is, you are not weak. You're just fighting what cannot be avoided impermanence. All of us fear losing the ones we love, losing opportunities, losing our youth, losing ourselves. But it's that very fear that keeps us from truly living. We run, we cling, we try to hold on until we finally realize everything most beautiful in life cannot be held. There is another path, quieter, gentler, not one of escape, but of liberation. It begins when we dare to look directly at death, not to fear it, but to see clearly the value of every breath that remains. Because only when we remember we will leave, do we truly know how to be here. Only when we touch the limit of time, do we understand what it means to love completely. Tonight, as you lie down, let your breath slow. With each inhale, smile at the life that still flows within you. With each exhale, release a little more fear. You don't need to fight anymore. You don't need to control anything. Just stay. And let the ancient teachings of the Buddha gently pass through you, like a breeze through a lotus. As these sounds unfold, allow your body to soften, your mind to settle like a lake after the wind. And somewhere deep within, you may hear a whisper, I am not immortal, but I can live fully in this fleeting moment. Welcome to Buddhism Seeds, where each night we slow down together, listen to ancient wisdom, and learn how to truly live. Before time slips away, there is one thing human beings avoid the most yet. It is the very thing that could make them live most deeply. Death. From birth, we are taught how to live, how to work, how to love. But rarely are we taught how to die. Not physical death, but how to look directly into the impermanence of all things to understand what it truly means to live. When we remember that life is fragile and limited, the mind becomes humble. We stop wasting energy on meaningless arguments, small calculations, or words that hurt others. Just one moment of reflection is enough to see that most of our suffering doesn't come from the world outside. It comes from believing we will live forever. Because we think there's still time, we delay. Because we believe tomorrow will come, we rarely cherish today. But tomorrow is only an assumption. None of us has a contract with time. When we realize this, something shifts. The mind becomes clearer, and love becomes more genuine. In the Buddha's teaching contemplation of death, Maranasati is not taught to create fear, but to awaken us from the illusion of immortality. When we truly face death without avoidance, the mind becomes luminous. We begin to see that life is precious only because it will end. The Buddha once said, among all contemplations, contemplation of death is supreme. Because only when we know everything has an end do we begin to value each remaining moment. Death is not a dark shadow waiting at the end of the road. It is like a silent teacher walking beside us, whispering each day, you still have a chance to love, to forgive, to understand. When we live without awareness of death, we become like sleepwalkers chasing fame, competing, hurting others, and losing ourselves. We forget that each breath could be our last. We forget that everything is leaving us moment by moment. But when we awaken to see this truth, a deep transformation happens. We stop clinging, we stop fearing. We begin to see life through the eyes of one who has awakened understanding that in the instant we let go, death becomes a companion to life, and love becomes the only thing that remains real. When you breathe in, that is birth, an invitation from life. When you breathe out, that is death, a quiet release. Within one breath, birth and death already happen completely enough to remind us that death is not far away. It is present in every rhythm of our being. Each morning when you open your eyes, it is a simple miracle another day, to love, to learn, to notice the little things, the sunlight on the wall, the scent of tea, the voice of someone you love. And yet, we forget that one morning will come when we won't open our eyes again. And because we forget, we take everything for granted. If we could live with that mindfulness, every glance, every touch, every meal would become sacred, not because they are grand, but because they are finite. In meditation, practitioners are taught to sit with the truth of their own death, to imagine the breath stopping, the body decaying, loved ones walking away. At first, fear arises strongly, but through each contemplation, that fear begins to melt. Because once death is no longer hidden, it becomes a natural part of life, like night and day, like the waning and waxing of the moon. And there freedom begins to bloom. When we understand that birth and death are just two pulses of the same breath, we stop fearing loss, stop running away, and begin to truly live in each breath we still have. Facing death strips away all masks, titles, status, possessions. Even the roles we try to protect all our lives lose meaning. Only one question remains: have I truly lived death? Is the teacher of shunyata, emptiness, reminding us that all phenomena lack a fixed self. We are born, grow, change, and pass like a cloud dissolving into the sky. But the cloud is not lost. It becomes rain, rivers, and the ocean. In the same way, death does not end life. It transforms it. The body dissolves, but consciousness, the stream of karma and intention, continues to flow. Understanding this, we fear less. Because we do not truly die, we simply return what was borrowed. And in that knowing, the heart opens naturally, no longer afraid to lose, no longer desperate to hold. When we know that we and everyone around us are moving toward the same end, we can no longer live carelessly. A harsh word could become a lasting regret. A delayed embrace might never happen again. Contemplating death brings mindfulness and compassion. It teaches us to say words of love while we still can, to forgive while the chance remains, and to look at each other with understanding rather than judgment. The Buddha taught, "One who remembers death often knows how to live peacefully, because such a person has no time for hatred. They understand that everyone is just a traveler pausing briefly on the road. No one is worth hating for long because everyone will go. And when we know everything is leaving, gratitude naturally arises. Gratitude for the morning light, for the warmth of a hand, for the presence of another soul. That gratitude itself is a practice of mindfulness in modern life. You don't need to go to a temple or a mountain to contemplate death. Just pause in the rush of your day and ask yourself, if today were my last day, how would I live? It is not a question of despair. It is a question of awakening. It brings you back to the present, to this breath, to the life that is actually here. Imagine this. If you knew you had only 24 hours left, would you still want to argue, criticize, or prove you're right? Or would you choose to sit in silence, feel the breeze, hold someone you love, and smile with quiet peace? That is meditation in daily life. Living as if today were your last, without fear, without regret. With practice, the mind becomes lighter, deeper, more authentic. Anger begins to fade, small sorrows settle. Because every time you remember impermanence, you touch the root of freedom. And when you live with that awareness that everything can be lost at any moment, you no longer wish to hurt anyone, no longer delay love, and each passing day becomes a gift. Western psychologists have also said, we only truly mature when we accept death. Death in psychology is not just the loss of the body, it is the end of the illusion of control. When we understand we cannot hold on to anything forever, we begin to live naturally like children. Children can cry and then laugh moments later because they do not yet know the concept of forever. Adults carry the fear of loss, so every joy is shadowed by anxiety. Meditation teaches us to return to that clear mind, to receive everything as it is without resistance, without forcing. When we look directly at death, we learn how to live without fear of losing to love, without needing to possess. Practice living as if everything could vanish tomorrow. When you eat, really eat, taste, feel, and be present with each bite. When you listen, truly listen, not just to words, but to the silence between them. And when you hold someone, don't let your mind wander to the past or future. Just be there, fully awake, grateful. When pain comes, instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, if today were my last day, would I want to waste it in resentment? That question alone can change how you see life. Contemplating death doesn't make you pessimistic. On the contrary, it opens clarity, freedom, and deep gratitude. We stop blaming others for not loving us right. Stop resenting life for not being fair. We understand life never promised to be fair. It only promised to be impermanent. And in that impermanence, we find the deepest fairness of all. Everyone must go. No one keeps anything forever. Every time someone leaves us, we ache because a part of us dies too. But if we look deeper, we see that every loss is an invitation to awaken. Each separation teaches the art of letting go. Each ending brings us back to ourselves. Death is not only literal, it exists in every small ending, a day passing, a feeling fading, a dream dissolving. If we can smile at those little deaths, we will no longer fear the big one. That is meditation within life, accepting every ending as a natural part of the flow, allowing each closure to become a doorway to wisdom, where death is not a period, but an invitation to live more awake, more loving, more fully present. You don't need to search for peace elsewhere. Peace is here the moment you pause, breathe deeply, and remember you are alive. Look around, everything is moving, leaves, falling, wind, blowing, light shifting. Everything is being born and dying in every second. And within that constant change, only one thing remains: awareness. If you stay with that awareness, you will see death is no longer frightening. It is simply the continuation of life in another form. Let this teaching walk with you through your days. When pain comes, remember this too shall pass. When joy arrives, remember cherish this, for it is impermanent. And when loss finds you, be grateful for it. Reminds you how to love rightly. Death shows us that everything is energy in motion. Nothing is truly lost, only transformed, continuing in new forms. And from that understanding, we glimpse a deeper law karma. Because the thoughts, emotions, and actions we create today become the stream of energy flowing through us and continuing in others. There are moments when you ask yourself, why do the things I don't want keep repeating? Why can someone else stay peaceful in the same situation while I feel so heavy inside? The answer is not punishment. No one above is keeping a record of your mistakes to judge you. What you are experiencing is karma, a continuous stream of energy moving through your body, your mind, and the world around you. In the Buddha's teaching, karma is not the hand of fate. It doesn't reward the good or punish the bad. It simply reflects the natural law of cause and condition, like a seed sprouting according to the nature of what was planted. If you plant a mango seed, you cannot expect an apple tree to grow. Likewise, if your mind is filled with anger, anxiety, or doubt, the results you receive can only be suffering and unrest. Not because someone wants to punish you, but because the universe moves in accordance with the law of cause and effect, objective, impartial, and precise. Every thought, every word, every action, even the most fleeting emotion, leaves an energetic fingerprint in the stream of karma. Those fingerprints do not disappear. They continue weaving the circumstances, people, and emotions you will meet in the future. In other words, we live in a world created by our own mind, not by magic, but by the energy of every thought, word, and action. The Buddha taught, "The mind precedes all things. The mind is their master. The mind creates them." That means every action begins with a thought. A wholesome thought gives rise to wise action. An unwholesome thought brings suffering. The mind is like water. When the water is clear, the sky reflects perfectly. When the water is muddy, the image becomes distorted. It is not the world that is unclear. It is our mind that bends the reflection. When you are angry, everyone around you seems unpleasant. When you are at peace, even imperfections feel gentle. That is the power of mental karma. Once we understand this, we realize that transforming karma is not about changing others, but about changing the energy operating within ourselves. When you observe your mind instead of reacting, you begin to interrupt the old stream of karma. When you plant even a small, wholesome thought into life, you are opening a new path for the future. Because karma is not fixed. It is a flow that can be redirected through mindfulness and wisdom. Understanding this, you no longer fear karma. You begin to appreciate the creative power within your own mind. Many people, upon hearing about karma, lament, "I suffer because of my past karma. I can't change it." But that is a deep misunderstanding. In the Buddha's teaching, karma is not an unchangeable fate. If karma could not be changed, the Buddha would never have taught the path to liberation. He showed that karma can be transformed. Imagine karma as a river of energy. This river carries everything you have ever released into it: seeds of love and hatred, of understanding and ignorance. But you are not a prisoner of that current. You are the one holding the paddle. With every mindful breath, Every conscious word, every intentional act, you are steering the water's direction. Just one drop of goodness today can make tomorrow's river clearer. According to Buddhist teaching, karma is created through 3 doors. Body karma, what we do. Speech karma, what we say. Mind karma, what we think. Among these 3, the mind is the root, because all words and actions arise from thought. A mind filled with anger gives birth to harsh words and hurtful deeds. A mind filled with compassion flows like cool water, soothing the pain around it. Modern psychology has confirmed what the Buddha taught more than 2,500 years ago. When we repeat a thought or emotion, the brain strengthens the corresponding neural pathway, turning it into a habit of reaction. Like a path that's been walked too many times, it becomes automatic, leaving little room for choice. A person who often worries lives in tension, even without real danger. A person who's used to anger will explode easily, even without reason. That is karma in modern life. The good news is the brain can be rewired and karma can be redirected. When we change the habits of the mind through mindfulness, compassion, and awareness, we create new pathways in consciousness. The mind becomes calmer, actions become wiser, emotions become lighter. The river of karma begins to clear. The Buddha did not say, accept your karma. He said, understand your karma and transform it. Because karma doesn't bind us, ignorance does. When you change the cause and condition, the result changes too. You no longer fear the past. Instead, you begin to plant new seeds with the awareness of the present moment. Transformation of karma is not a mystical ritual or an external miracle. It begins with small moments within daily life itself. When you're angry, but stop before speaking hurtful words, that's transforming karma. When you feel jealous, but breathe deeply and observe the feeling instead of reacting, that's transforming karma. When you remember old pain, but choose forgiveness instead of resentment, that too is transforming karma. Every moment of mindfulness lightens the chain of old causes and plants new seeds of understanding. Remember, karma does not come to punish you, it comes to teach you. Every situation is a lesson. Every person you meet is a mirror reflecting your own mind. If you learn from them, the lesson dissolves. If you avoid it, it will return in a different form through a different person or situation. So instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is this trying to teach me? That question is the wisdom that transforms karma. In meditation, we do not try to erase karma, we recognize it. When you sit quietly, you begin to see the habits of the mind, the reactions, the fears, the need to control, the urge to judge. Whenever a thought arises, simply recognize it. This is karmic energy. No judgment, no suppression, just gentle awareness. The power of meditation lies in seeing without attachment. When you see clearly, karma loses its hold. Because karma operates only in ignorance where we do not see or understand. When awareness shines, darkness dissolves. Practice pausing a few times each day. Breathe slowly. Observe where your mind is running. fear, desire, reaction. Just notice it. Don't fix it. That awareness itself is the seed of freedom. That is how we transform karma in modern life, not through rituals, but through presence in every breath. It is the moment you stop being swept away by old energy and begin steering the boat of your karma toward light. Karma doesn't just live inside individuals, it radiates into the space around us. An angry mind can make the atmosphere heavy, while a compassionate mind can calm an entire room. The Buddha taught that loving kindness metta can dissolve countless karmic obstructions. When you send wholesome energy into the world, you purify yourself. A kind word, a grateful act, a gentle look. These are not just gestures of goodness, they are new seeds in your karmic stream. They may seem small, but every small light can change the direction of the whole river. If you've ever hurt someone, don't be afraid. Karma is not a sentence, it is an invitation to grow. Begin again with a new intention of kindness. When we understand the mechanics of karma, we stop blaming. No more because of them, because of circumstances, or because of fate. Everything around us is merely a reflection of the seeds we once planted. Understanding this softens the heart. Instead of reacting, we learn to accept, take responsibility, and transform. The wise do not run from karma, they learn from it. And once the lesson is learned, karma naturally dissolves like a storm clearing, leaving behind a clear sky. True freedom is not escaping karma. It is seeing through it. When there is no one left to blame and nothing left to fear, that is peace. Try this small practice. Each morning before the day begins, take 3 deep breaths and ask yourself, what kind of energy do I want to send into the world today? Even one wholesome intention, gratitude, calmness, or the wish not to harm anyone can shift the course of the entire day. Throughout the day, when you notice anger, fear, or judgment, pause for one breath. Feel the energy rising. Don't hate it. Simply recognize, this is karma manifesting. Then relax, smile, and let it pass. If you practice this often, you will begin to see life stops being a chain of reactions and becomes a natural flow. You are no longer carried by old energies. You are creating new ones through awareness itself. To understand karma is to understand both responsibility and freedom. Responsibility because every thought, word, and action leaves an imprint. Freedom because you can change direction in any present moment. No one can do it for you, and no one can take away your chance to transform. Karma is just a mirror. You are the artist painting your own life. If you wish to live lightly, start by being gentle with yourself. Forgive your mistakes, release old burdens, and plant new seeds of goodness every day. Do not fear karma. Within it already lies the seed of liberation. As the Buddha taught, when fire realizes it is burning, that flame begins to die. Likewise, when the mind recognizes it is creating karma, that karma begins to dissolve. When you see karma as a flow of energy, you also begin to see that much of your suffering doesn't come from lacking something, but from wanting too much. It is the restless wanting to have more, to be more, to change. More that makes the karmic current heavy and clouded. And to make it clear again, you don't need to add anything. You simply need to stop. That is where you begin to understand. Voluntary simplicity, the power of enough. There are moments in life when you suddenly realize you have wandered too far from the stillness within. You've been chasing too many things you thought were necessary only to find yourself tired, empty, and lost. You may have everything: career, fame, wealth, recognition, yet still feel a hollow space inside that nothing can fill. And then you see the more you hold on to, the more crowded the heart becomes. The more you want, the harder it is to find joy in what you already have. And on a quiet enough day, you will understand enough is not a number. It is a state of mind. In the Buddha's teaching, there is a beautiful concept called santuti. Knowing contentment. It is the foundation of true happiness. To know contentment doesn't mean rejecting the world or denying joy, but understanding the natural limits of desire. When you know enough, you still work, create, and walk your path. But inwardly, there is no longer restlessness or comparison. You no longer race others. You simply follow the rhythm of your own being, like a thirsty person. When they've had enough water, they stop, not because the water runs out, but because the body knows it is satisfied. Those who don't know enough will keep drinking, haunted by a thirst, not in the throat, but in the mind. Many misunderstand simplicity as poverty or deprivation, but simplicity is not renunciation, it is refinement. Simplicity means keeping what nourishes peace and letting go of what doesn't. It's like a room full of old clutter. Only when you clear out what's unnecessary can light flow in. The mind is the same. When filled with too much winning and losing, right and wrong, gain and loss, it becomes cramped and heavy. Those who live simply are those who know how to clear their minds to remove comparisons, the need for praise, the fear of criticism, and even the habit of proving their worth. Because the more we try to prove ourselves, the more we depend on the eyes of others. A simple person doesn't chase recognition, for they know when you still need to be seen, you have not yet truly seen yourself. To live simply is to return to what is real. It's a modest meal but nourishing, a quiet life but full of love, plain words but sincere. A simple mind is one that has shed layers of illusion, covering its natural clarity and kindness. Many fear letting go, fear losing, fear lacking. Yet paradoxically, only when there is less do we truly see what we have. In meditation, this is called the art of emptiness. Music is not only sound, it is also the silence between notes. Without pauses, we would hear nothing. It is silence that makes the melody. And in life, it is simplicity and space that create peace. If you fill every moment with work, social media, or pursuit, you'll never hear the voice within. But when you begin to subtract, talk less, want less, interfere less, you start to hear another sound, the sound of stillness. And in that stillness, wisdom begins to speak. The Buddha once said, "One who has few desires lives peacefully. One who has many desires, even amid wealth, remains poor." That truth never ages. Peace doesn't come from having more, but from seeing that you already have enough. And when you know enough, everything suddenly feels just right. The world no longer needs to change. Your mind only needs to stop and see that this moment is complete. Modern psychology has confirmed what the Buddha taught over 2,500 years ago, that the human mind does not naturally know contentment. Our brain is wired to want more than what we have. It's a survival mechanism helping us evolve, conquer, and create, but it also prevents us from ever feeling at peace. Scientists call this the hedonic adaptation effect. It explains why joy after achieving something fades so quickly. You buy a new car, the excitement lasts a few weeks. You get a promotion within months, it feels ordinary. Then you want something else, a bigger house, a higher position, a better life. It's the endless loop of desire where we think we're moving forward, but are only running in circles. Yet something miraculous happens when we pause. When we observe instead of chase, the brain begins to change. Science shows that when we live mindfully and know enough, the body lowers cortisol, the stress hormone, and raises serotonin, the peace hormone. When the mind rests, the body heals. But when the mind constantly demands, the body wears out. What modern science just discovered, the Buddha taught long ago. When the mind stops grasping, suffering ceases. In Buddhist practice, moral precepts are not restrictions. They are tools to help us realize what enough truly means. When we learn to pause in eating, speaking, or desiring possessions, it's not out of fear of sin or loss of merit, but from seeing clearly the nature of craving. Desire is like fire. The more fuel you add, the higher it burns. A person who keeps precepts is not one without ambition, but one who understands its limits. They know that whatever exceeds enough will eventually become a burden on body and mind. Balance is the middle way the Buddha walked, neither indulgence nor self-denial, but harmony, knowing when to advance and when to stop. Knowing that less can sometimes be more. That is also the spirit of voluntary simplicity. Simplicity is not deprivation or force. It's a conscious choice to have less in order to have more. Not stopping life, but stopping the restless mind. Not quitting action, but living with awareness in each moment. In meditation, one doesn't try to erase thoughts. They sit and observe. As the mind stops struggling, calmness appears like the moon reflected on a still lake. Those who have never sat with themselves will keep searching outside to fill the emptiness within. They fear silence, fear emptiness, because in that space they must face themselves. But those who pause see differently. They realize nothing is missing, only presence. They understand that simplicity is not loss, but a return to truth, a simple meal yet nourishing, a quiet afternoon yet full of light. a single deep breath enough. At its heart, voluntary simplicity is a return to the present where everything fits, nothing lacking, nothing excess, where happiness is no longer a destination, but the natural state of a mind that knows how to stop. And when you stop, you will see life has never lacked anything. You were simply moving too fast to notice you already had enough. You can begin today. No big change is needed. Just notice where there's too much. Perhaps it's excess judgment, excess fear, or a relationship long past its time that you still hold on to out of loneliness. Perhaps it's goals, possessions, or titles that no longer bring joy, but you cling to them out of habit or fear of loss. Start small. Clean one corner of your room. Feel the lightness when space returns. Likewise, when you clear the mind, removing unnecessary thoughts, comparisons, resentments, your heart begins to breathe again. And the miracle is, this peace comes not from adding, but from subtracting. When we live with a sense of enough, the mind becomes still. Stillness is not total silence. It is the absence of disturbance from too little or too much. Those who know enough still work, love, and dream, but their actions come from wholeness, not from emptiness. That is the difference between one who acts from lack and one who acts from fullness. The one who lacks acts to fill a void. The one who is full acts to share energy. One creates karma, the other creates merit. The difference is not in the action itself, but in the energy behind it. In modern psychology, gratitude is seen as the doorway to contentment. When you are grateful, your mind stops on what you already have instead of spinning toward what's missing. The brain cannot feel gratitude and dissatisfaction at the same time. When gratitude rises, comparison fades. When comparison fades, happiness appears. Take a few minutes each day to remember what you already have: a roof above a breath within someone who cares. It doesn't have to be much, only sincere. Gratitude is the mind's natural tranquilizer. Science shows that practicing gratitude releases dopamine and oxytocin chemicals of peace, closeness, and happiness. This aligns perfectly with the Buddha's words. Loving kindness is the source of peace. The grateful heart lives always in blessing. Gratitude is the simplest way to cultivate the energy of enough. When you release the unnecessary, your heart expands and peace finds its home. Like a room cleaned of clutter, light enters naturally without invitation. Peace does not come from outside, it arises when the inner space is no longer crowded. That's why those who know contentment always smile, not because they have everything, but because they see that every breath, every step, every moment is already enough. You can practice this right now. Pause a few times a day. Place your hand on your chest and take a deep breath. Then ask yourself, right now, do I have enough? Most of the time, the answer will be yes. You have air to breathe, a body to live in, a mind to be aware, and the chance to love, to learn, to grow. Everything else is simply a choice of the mind. If your mind starts wanting something more, observe it gently. Do I truly need this, or am I just afraid of not having? Even 1 second of awareness like that pulls you out of the whirlpool of craving and brings you back to your inner stillness. Each time you pause like that, your heart expands a little more and peace finds more space to stay. Enough is not advice to give up or stop dreaming. It is a reminder to live mindfully amid endless desires. Because when the mind feels lacking, no matter how much you gain, it still feels empty. But when the mind feels full, a bowl of rice, a cup of tea become heaven. Enough is the energy of freedom. Those who know enough are not bound by craving nor driven by the gaze of others. They may live in a busy world, but within them lies a vast, bright sky. Not because they have nothing left to achieve, but because they see that everything truly precious is already here. And when you finally touch that state of enough, you will realize that nothing more is needed to be happy. For happiness, after all, was never elsewhere. It has always been here, in this very breath. When the mind knows enough, the heart stops fearing loss. And when fear of loss ends, love becomes free. Then you understand unconditional love doesn't come from possession, but from the wisdom to let go with understanding. There are relationships that make us believe we are in love, but in truth, we are only negotiating. Negotiating through expectations, fears, and unspoken conditions that even we ourselves may not fully recognize. We give, yet deep down we wait to be given back. We care, yet secretly hope the other will understand and respond the way we want. And when they don't, we feel hurt, disappointed, and unloved. But real love is not a transaction. It's not a series of if-then conditions our minds quietly create. True love is a free flow of energy, both profound and light, like the breath that passes without needing to hold. In the Buddha's teaching, every demand is born from attachment to self. From the ego's desire to be recognized, prioritized, and loved in its own way. That ego whispers, "If they truly love me, they must understand me." But think about it, we ourselves sometimes don't even understand our own hearts. So how can we demand that another person fully understand us? That is the illusion of the ego. True love does not require complete understanding. It only needs space for both people to be themselves. Such love does not demand sameness, but respects difference. Just as the sky never asks the clouds to stop, and the ocean never blames the waves for coming and going, those who love unconditionally never ask, "Why don't you understand me?" Instead, they quietly ask, "Do I truly understand them?" In the Buddha's words, nothing truly belongs to us, not even the one we love. It may sound sad, but it is the very door to freedom in love. Only when we stop holding on can we truly love. Because love is not possession, it is reverence for another's existence. Unconditional love doesn't arise from emptiness, but from inner wholeness. When we are full, we give not to compensate, but because we find joy in the act of giving itself. That's when love becomes meditation, a moment-to-moment awareness of the heart. Have you noticed? When you truly love someone, you don't need them to say thank you. The joy is already within the act of giving. Like a mother caring for her child, her happiness doesn't come from repayment, but from every look, every breath, every tiny movement. She doesn't count or calculate because love has become the instinct of understanding and compassion. That is the energy of unconditional love to give without needing acknowledgement. The more expectations you let go of, the deeper your love becomes. The fewer the conditions, the wider your compassion grows. Because when the mind no longer demands love, becomes clear. In meditation, one learns to love without possession. Sitting quietly, you see everything come and go, emotions, people, even the idea of self fading away. And then you understand to love is not to find someone to complete you, but to awaken the light already within you. Those who haven't learned unconditional love live in constant fear of loss. But those who understand that love is a free-flowing energy no longer fear losing, because they know to love is to give, not to hold. To love is to rejoice in the other's happiness, even when that happiness is no longer in your hands. Such love is not weak, it is strong in mindfulness. It does not seek control, but understands impermanence. And within impermanence we find the most eternal truth, the ability to love without possession. When love is no longer ruled by ego, it becomes a form of enlightenment. Because then love is no longer instinct, but the expression of wisdom and compassion. If one day you can love someone without needing them to be perfect, without needing them to change to make you peaceful, and simply feel happy because they are being themselves, then love within you has become meditation. And when love becomes meditation, it no longer hurts. It becomes the path to liberation. Most of us love through fear. Fear of losing, fear of being abandoned, fear of not being important in someone's heart. So love turns into an invisible contract. I love you, but you must make me happy. And the moment love carries conditions, suffering begins. Because we no longer love to share, but to receive. We no longer see the other as a person, but as an extension of ourselves. True love does not negotiate. It does not arise from the ego's demands, but from a compassionate heart that feels whole. When you love without possessing, your heart becomes a home for peace. Such love does not ask, "What do I gain from them?" but quietly wonders, "Are they more at peace because I am here?" Not because you lower yourself, but because you understand the true nature of love. In meditation, all emotions are seen as moving energy. When you love, that energy flows naturally like a stream running through rocks, needing no direction, no control. But once you begin to control, to steer, or to hold, the clear water becomes cloudy. Love is the same. When we try to control, we use the energy of possession to imprison what was meant to be free. The Buddha taught loving kindness. Metta is only true when it is impersonal. That means there is no longer a boundary between me and you. We love not because someone is ours, but because we see their suffering and simply wish them peace. In that understanding, love becomes living meditation. You don't need to try to love, you just need to be fully present. And in that presence, love blooms naturally like a flower under sunlight. Modern psychology calls this mature love. A kind of love that arises not from lack, but from inner wholeness. People with mature love understand, you are not here to complete me. You are here so I may learn to share myself. They can stand firmly in solitude, so when they love, they do not cling or control. They know how to love without losing themselves, and how to remain themselves while loving deeply. Therapists point out that when we love with fear and control, the body releases cortisol, the stress hormone causing anxiety, sleeplessness, and instability. But when we love with compassion and contentment, the body releases oxytocin, the hormone of connection bringing warmth, safety, and lasting happiness. This shows that unconditional love is not only Buddhist philosophy, it is a form of healing. It heals not only the one who is loved, but also the one who loves. Because when the heart stops demanding, it becomes as light as the wind and as free as the sky. If you truly wish to love freely, start by observing your own expectations. Whenever you notice yourself wanting someone to prove their love, pause for a moment and ask, am I truly loving them, or am I trying to control them? Just one mindful breath is enough to reveal how thin the line is between true love and ego-driven love. The ego whispers, if they love me, they must make me happy. But the awakened heart says, I love because loving itself is understanding. Practice letting go of one reaction each day. When someone hurts, you don't react immediately. Don't withdraw. Don't demand. Breathe and look deeply. Is this pain caused by their action or by my own expectation? Just 1 second of awareness can lift you out of the spiral of demands, and love becomes clearer. In the Buddha's teaching, metta loving kindness and karuna compassion are two wings of the same bird. Metta gives joy. Karuna relieves suffering. True love cannot exist without both. When you love without expecting anything, that is metta. When you can embrace and understand another's pain, that is karuna. And when metta and karuna merge, your heart becomes boundless. You no longer love just one person, but all beings for you. See that every living being is walking through suffering, seeking peace just like you. Those with true compassion don't need others to prove their love. They understand love is a nature, not an obligation. They don't need gratitude because the act of loving is already the reward. The Buddha never told us to abandon love. He taught us how to love without suffering, to love without attachment, to care without control, to be close while keeping freedom for both. Such love is like a lamp in the night. It lights another's room without needing light in return. The more it shines, the brighter it grows, never diminishing. That is mindful love. A kind of love that doesn't need to possess, because it is an ever-flowing energy. To love in this way doesn't make you weak. It makes you steady and luminous amid change. If you want to know what kind of love you are in, look into your heart. If there is fear, it is attachment. If there is ease, it is understanding. In meditation, we don't avoid emotions. We look at them with awareness. When you feel jealousy, hurt, or longing, don't suppress or deny them. Sit quietly, breathe slowly, and whisper, "Hello, fear. I see you." That simple recognition is already light shining into ignorance. And when the mind sees clearly, emotions dissolve on their own. You don't have to force yourself to stop loving, you just have to love with awareness. That is meditation in love. To love, not to possess, but to understand. Not to prove your worth, but to learn to listen deeply. When you truly love mindfully, you begin to notice every subtle movement of the mind. When anger arises, you know it. When affection arises, you know it. You no longer get swept away, but watch like standing on the riverbank, watching the current flow. Emotions come and go, but you remain clear, awake, and free. Each time you pause, each time you refrain from demanding or reacting, you are planting seeds of wisdom and compassion. And from those seeds, your love will grow, no longer the love of the ego, but the love of awakening. A true practitioner of the Buddha's path does not avoid love. They use love as a means of practice. Because within every relationship, every feeling, every wound lies the opportunity to see the mind clearly. Each time you feel hurt, ask, what is this pain teaching me? Each time you miss someone, ask, do I miss them? Or the feeling of being loved? If you are honest enough, those questions lead you to truth. Love is simply an expression of the longing to connect and belong. And when the mind becomes still, enough love returns to its true nature, compassion and openness. Unconditional love does not mean abandoning yourself. It means letting go of control. Not that you don't need the other person, but that you don't need them to be like you. When you can love without possessing, understand without needing to be understood, give without expecting to receive, then your heart is truly free. Such love does not make you weak. It makes you strong, clear, and free, because you have learned the art of loving without suffering. The Buddha taught, when the mind is filled with compassion, there is no enemy, and the whole world becomes your home. Unconditional love is the doorway to infinite compassion, where you no longer seek happiness from others, but become your own source of light. And when you truly understand that love is letting go, you will see something even deeper. Love is not only light, but also the shadows of emotions that rise and fall. Sometimes love makes you angry, sad, fearful, or vulnerable. But those emotions are not here to be denied or escaped. They are small waves of the ocean of mind arriving so that you may learn to observe like a monk watching clouds drift across the sky, calm, mindful, and non-judgmental. Only when you can love with awareness does love become a path to liberation, not a net that binds the soul. There are mornings when you open your eyes and feel a vague sadness, one you can't explain. Nothing serious has happened. No one has hurt you yet. Something inside feels heavy, dull, unclear. Maybe it was just a careless comment from someone, a fleeting memory, a silence between two thoughts, and suddenly, the sky within you is covered with gray clouds. You ask yourself, why do I feel this way? You try to shake it off, to smile, to think positively. But the more you try, the stronger it clings. Like trying to push a cloud away with your hands, you only scatter it into more mist. The truth is, emotions are not enemies. They are simply the weather of the mind. They come and go, change and pass. And if you know how to stand still and watch, they dissolve on their own, like rain that falls and then stops. In the Buddha's teaching, the mind is like the sky, vast, clear, uncreated, and indestructible. But out of ignorance, we mistake the clouds our emotions, thoughts, worries for who we are. When we identify with emotion, suffering begins. We say, "I'm an angry person." But in truth, anger only visits like a summer storm. It comes, it pours, then goes. You are not the anger, just as the rain cannot say, "I am the sky." The sky doesn't need to chase the clouds away to be blue again. It has always been blue. Likewise, you don't need to get rid of emotions to be at peace. Peace has always been there, only temporarily covered. When anger arises, see it as you would see rain. Stand still, take a deep breath, and simply observe. Ah, here is anger passing through. If you don't follow it, it will fade. And after the rain, the earth smells sweet again. Negative emotions don't come to destroy you. They come to reveal what inside you needs care. Fear shows where you lack safety. Sadness shows what you are grieving. Anger shows where you've been hurt or misunderstood. So emotions aren't bad. They are the language of the heart, the way your inner world says, "Please stop and look here." But humans often do the opposite. When sad, we turn up the music. When angry, we look for someone or something to release it on. When lonely, we drown ourselves in work phones or social media just to avoid facing it. Yet avoidance only prolongs the pain. Emotions don't disappear when ignored. They only go deeper, waiting to be seen. Others cling to emotions instead. They replay their pain 100 times in their minds, as if holding onto a wound to prove it still exists. But every time we retell the story, we make the wound bleed again. Both extremes, avoidance and attachment, pull us away from truth. And the truth is simple: emotions only need to be seen with awareness. No fixing, no fighting, no overanalyzing. Just recognition. Ah, sadness is here. When you stop reacting, the emotion dissolves like clouds drifting away with the wind. That's why in meditation, people don't try to stop being angry or stop being sad. They simply sit and watch. Because only when you look deeply into emotion can you see its root: fear, emptiness, the longing to be loved. And when you see the root clearly, the emotion loses its power. No emotion needs to be erased. They are part of being human. But there is a big difference between being ruled by emotions and observing them with mindfulness. A practitioner learns to be the observer. When angry, they know they are angry. When sad, they know sadness is present. And in that moment of awareness, a space of freedom opens. The emotion remains, but it no longer controls you. If you can sit quietly when the rain comes, and remember that behind the clouds the sky is still there, you will understand what emotional freedom means. You don't have to be happy all the time. You just need to be real with whatever is here. Because peace is not the absence of storms. It is knowing how to stand still in the middle of one. And one day, you may smile and realize emotions were never the problem. What caused suffering was only our inability to sit and listen. When we begin to listen, emotions become gentle teachers, showing us the way back home to the sky-like mind, clear and boundless, no matter how many clouds pass through. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha taught, the mind calm amidst agitation is like a mountain steady in the wind. That simple sentence is one of the deepest teachings on mastering emotion. Because emotions, no matter how strong, are only winds. They can bend trees, swirl clouds, but they cannot move the mountain. A meditator does not try to stop the wind, but learns to stay steady within it. When you are sad, you don't need to force a smile. When you are angry, you don't need to fake calm. All you need is to see clearly what is happening inside and not be swept away. Like a monk sitting in the middle of a storm, not to challenge it, but to witness the birth and death of all things. Modern science confirms this wisdom. Neuroscientific studies show that an emotion, if left unresisted, lasts about 90 seconds. What prolongs it are the stories we tell ourselves. How could they do that to me? I don't deserve this. The story is the wind that keeps the waves from settling. Meditation offers another way returning to the breath. Breathe in, knowing you're breathing in. Breathe out, knowing you're breathing out. Watch emotions like clouds moving across the sky. Clouds don't need to be analyzed to disappear. Just stop feeding them energy and they fade naturally. As you practice this, the amygdala, the brain's fear center, calms down while the prefrontal cortex, the area of awareness and reason, becomes more active. That's why mindfulness reduces stress and anxiety. We stop identifying with emotions. No matter how intense your anger or sorrow, all emotions follow the same truth of impermanence. No anger lasts forever. No sadness is eternal. The Buddha taught, all conditioned things are impermanent. When this is seen with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. When you truly see impermanence in your emotions, you stop fearing their arrival and stop clinging when they leave. That is inner freedom. Freedom not from control, but from understanding. You can begin practicing this now. Sit quietly, inhale deeply, exhale softly. Place a hand on your heart and whisper, "This emotion is here, but it is not me." Then just observe. If sadness is here, let it be. If anger is here, let it be. No analysis, no rejection. You are the keeper of the sky. Clouds may come and go, but the sky is never scarred. That is mindfulness in emotion, to see without becoming, to know without reacting. It is not escaping life, but meditating within it. Emotions themselves are not the cause of suffering. Suffering arises when we cling to them as if they define who we are. When angry, we think I'm right. When sad, I'm a victim. When afraid, I'm weak. And this imagined I is the root of pain. The Buddha said, there is no self in emotion, only mental processes arising and passing away. When you see this clearly, you no longer try to fix emotions, because fixing is another form of resistance. Instead, you let them dissolve naturally, like foam merging back into the sea. Life will always bring moments that test your calm, a careless word, a misunderstanding, a failure. Instead of reacting, pause for one breath. Inhale, feel the heat in your chest. Exhale, watch anger as a cloud in motion. Just 3 mindful breaths can signal your nervous system to soften and your mind to clear. Not because anger has vanished, but because it no longer controls you. A practitioner is not someone who has no emotions. Quite the opposite, they feel deeply, but they are not ruled by what they feel. Like a mountain standing still in the rain, it still gets wet, still feels the wind, but it does not move. So too with meditation, the heart can touch pain without being defined by it. You don't need a stronger mind. You need a more mindful one. Because awareness is the greatest strength. Scientific studies now show that when we practice mindfulness with emotions levels of cortisol, the stress hormone drops significantly. Meditation doesn't erase emotions. It changes how we experience them. Instead of resisting, we allow them to pass. And this allowing itself becomes the medicine. Like a wound, if you stop touching it, it heals. Emotions are the same. They only need not to be fought. This life will never run out of storms. But if you learn to be the mountain, you'll see that the sky never lost its blue. Every anger, every sadness, every fear is only weather in the mind. Let them come, let them go. No pushing, no holding. Just stay, observe, and breathe. Because when you stop trying to fix emotions, the mind naturally balances itself. And when the clouds fade, the sky shines on its own. That is meditation in daily life, where peace doesn't come from avoiding storms, but from knowing how to stand still within them. And when you finally let emotions come and go freely, you begin to glimpse a deeper layer of freedom. Suffering doesn't come from emotion, but from the desire for things to be different. We spend life trying to change control or define what's happening, yet that very effort is the root of restlessness. When you stop resisting the natural flow of mind, you enter the art of Wu Wei, effortless harmony. Not because you've given up on life, but because you've learned to live with it without being swept away. Since childhood, you were probably taught that only when you try your hardest, you become worthy of love, recognition, and peace. And so begins the journey of constant striving to achieve goals, striving to control outcomes, striving to make everything go according to your will. But the harder you try, the heavier your shoulders feel. The tighter you hold on, the more your hands ache. Until one day, you realize this forced effort is quietly eroding your inner life. And Zen masters often say, relaxing is not the same as giving up. Giving up is surrendering, withdrawing, turning away from the flow of life. Relaxing, on the other hand, is the art of stopping at the right moment, stopping unnecessary resistance, so that natural wisdom has the chance to emerge, allowing action to arise spontaneously from clarity, not from fear or pressure. This is the essence of Wu Wei, a way of living that is not driven by force, not interfering with the natural flow of the way, but allowing the way to move through you. In Buddhist teaching, this corresponds to the concept of non-striving action, Wu Gong Yong Xing, acting, not from the ego that needs to prove something, but simply acting, because it is the right thing to do naturally at the right time in the right way. Hidden beneath the habit of over-effort is often a mistaken belief. Only when I succeed will I have value. That belief makes us measure our worth by results and treat every failure as proof of uselessness. From there, the mind falls into a cycle of pressure, Fear and control always tense like a tightened string. According to modern psychology, when in such a state, the sympathetic nervous system is activated, the heart beats faster, the body stiffens, breathing becomes shallow, and the brain shifts into the fight, flight, freeze mode. Vision narrows, creativity declines, and we react more than we respond. In contrast, when we relax, the parasympathetic system activates, breathing deepens, the heartbeat slows, the mind becomes clear and natural. Creativity opens. The less you force, the more effective you become at truth. Every meditation practitioner discovers over time. Someone once asked a Zen master, "If we don't try hard, isn't that being passive?" The master smiled. "No, not forcing doesn't mean not acting. On the contrary, it's the most refined kind of action, one that uses no excess effort, not interfered with by the ego, yet remains complete, effective, and peaceful." In Buddhism, this state is called right effort, one of the Eightfold Path elements. Right effort doesn't mean trying until exhaustion, but acting with wisdom, mindfulness, and proper direction. The Buddha taught 4 forms of right effort. 1. Prevent unwholesome states that haven't arisen. 2. Abandon unwholesome states that have arisen. 3. Cultivate wholesome states that haven't arisen. 4. Strengthen wholesome states that have arisen. Therefore, effort doesn't mean pushing to the end, but rather applying effort appropriately in the right place at the right time. Like a musician who knows when to tighten and when to loosen a string, so the sound is full, not broken or dull. When the ego's need to prove itself dissolves, effort becomes as natural as breathing. When control is released, results appear effortlessly, like flowers blooming in their season. In Zen wisdom, prajna doesn't arise from tension, but from a mind that is empty and luminous, empty of prejudice, luminous in seeing things as they are. Imagine entering an important conversation, a big project or a turning point decision. If your mind is crowded with desire, fear, or calculation, your perception becomes distorted. You no longer see reality, only the reflection of your own expectations. Relaxing means clearing the mind before acting. It's the process of letting go of, "It must be this way." Letting go of, "I must get what I want." Letting go of others must change. When the inner space is open, action arises by itself. Words become measured, gestures natural and timely. Solutions appear simple yet effective. You'll be surprised to find that without the armor of control, your hands become more skillful than ever. Surrendering versus relaxing, a subtle but vital difference. Surrendering means withdrawing, giving up escaping responsibility. Relaxing means keeping responsibility, but releasing rigid expectations. Relaxing is doing your part fully, but not forcing what depends on conditions. The one who surrenders does little and expects little. The one who relaxes does just enough and feels enough. The difference lies in awareness and compassion. Surrendering happens out of fatigue. Relaxing happens out of understanding. In work, when the mind is stretched by goals, you lose natural sensitivity. Try pausing for 10 breaths before sending an important email, before a meeting, or before making a decision. You'll notice words choose themselves. The voice softens naturally. Logic becomes concise and clear. That is the wisdom of non-forcing. In relationships, when we insist that others must understand or follow us, the mind becomes cramped. Practice listening without arguing for the first 2 minutes. Just listen. When there is no force, understanding arises on its own, and understanding is the shortest path to peace. In practice, don't force the mind to be still. Don't push yourself into silence. Just sit quietly, allowing everything to be the noise, the breath, the thoughts, the emotions. Then gently return to the breath. When you stop trying to achieve concentration, it comes softly, like noon shadows falling over a lake, naturally, without being sought. The art of Wu Wei is not living carelessly, but living skillfully in surrender. No longer forcing life, nor being forced by it. Simply being fully present, allowing action to arise from inner calm. And when you can live like that, you'll deeply understand the sage's teaching. When we stop trying to control life, life begins to unfold as it truly is. That is the power of relaxation, the strength that needs no grasping, because it sees clearly. When the mind stops forcing, the way reveals itself naturally. When you replace force with flow, you'll understand why less tension brings greater results. Because when we no longer resist what is our energy, no longer scatters and struggle, it's fully available for clarity and wise response. A soft mind is a skillful mind. Skillful leads to accurate. Accurate leads to enough. In the scriptures, the middle way teaches us to avoid two extremes, one of indulgence in pleasure and one of self-torturing austerity. Between them lies a natural rhythm, dedicated yet relaxed, diligent, but unstrained. When you live in the spirit of flow, energy moves freely. Your actions remain powerful, but without resistance. The 3-breath rule before responding. When you receive bad news, a harsh email or criticism that tightens your chest, don't react immediately. Pause. Inhale deeply. Exhale slowly. Repeat this 3 times. Just 3 breaths, but enough for your nervous system to calm, your heartbeat to steady, and your wisdom to begin speaking. You'll start to see more clearly what truly needs to be said, and what is just a reaction from a wounded ego. Practice 80% is enough. In many things, 80% is already enough to keep the flow going. The remaining 20% often comes from the ego, the part that wants to prove to perfect to be praised. Try stopping at enough, and you'll be surprised how much energy is saved for what truly matters, things that nourish inner peace rather than reputation. Practice small pauses. Set a bell to ring every 60-90 minutes. When it rings, stand up, roll your shoulders, inhale deeply. Exhale slowly for just 1 minute. These tiny pauses may seem trivial, but together they build a large reservoir of calm. The body loosens, the mind clears and softens. Before you act, ask yourself 3 simple questions. 1. Is this truly necessary? 2. Can it be simpler? 3. Am I straining? If any answer is yes, drop 1 movement and relax. Because sometimes it's not an extra action, but a gentle release that makes things complete. And in that release, wisdom speaks quietly but unmistakably. Meditation never teaches us to escape or abandon responsibility. It teaches us to stay awake amid the flow of life, to act from clarity, not from reaction. When you notice the urge to control, to make everything and everyone align with your will, simply smile at it, then return to what you're doing. No need to resist it. No need to indulge it. Just see it clearly and harmonize. You cannot force others, nor can you force circumstances. But you can take charge of your body, speech, and mind. That is true freedom, self-mastery born of awareness. At that point, right mindfulness, right concentration, right effort work in harmony. Right mindfulness helps you see clearly what is happening. Right concentration keeps the mind from being swept away. Right effort gives you the strength to act rightly and sufficiently. This is the art of living awake in a restless world. When you relax, the mind naturally enters a state of flow, where focus peaks, awareness expands, and time seems to slow down. Everything moves smoothly, not because you're trying harder, but because the self has stepped aside. In that moment, your natural intelligence shines in its purest form. Consistent practice is still needed, but the moments that truly transform you always arise from a non-striving state. When you stop forcing energy, no longer leaks into resistance, it channels entirely into presence. You can cultivate this flow through 3 simple principles. 1. Clear intention. Know what you're doing, but don't impose outcomes. 2. Light expectation. Let results come when conditions are ripe. Don't choke time. 3. Return to the body. Soften the shoulders. Relax the forehead. Slow the breath, and let the body become the doorway to stillness. When the body opens, the mind opens. When the mind opens, capability reveals itself without effort, without strain. That is the natural efficiency of an awakened being. Exercise 1. Intentional body relaxation. 3 minutes. Sit still with your back gently upright. Release the jaw, drop the shoulders as if lowering an invisible weight. Inhale and silently note. Aware, recognizing life in each breath. Exhale and silently note. Release, letting the air carry away what remains tense. Move your attention slowly through your body. Forehead, eyes, jaw, neck, shoulders, chest, abdomen. Wherever tension is found, inhale to know it, exhale to let it go. You'll feel a clear open space inside where action arises naturally without force. Exercise 2. Stop excess. Thinking with anchoring. Choose one physical point, the soles of your feet touching the ground or your hands resting on your lap. Whenever your mind begins to chase thoughts, gently return awareness to that point, along with the breath. In just 30 to 60 seconds, the stream of compulsion inside you will quiet down. Exercise 3. Effortless action in small tasks. Choose a daily activity: washing dishes, making tea, folding clothes. Slow down by 10%. Breathe evenly. Observe each movement. Don't think to get it done. Just be in the act itself. When the mind stops interfering, every gesture becomes as light as flowing water. This is how you practice non-striving in motion, planting the seed of Wu Wei, where peace arises in the simplest acts. Forced effort often creates karma through speech and action. When the mind is tight, words become sharp actions, cross boundaries. But when you relax, your energy softens and everything begins to change. Speech becomes gentle gestures, natural responses more composed and refined. Relationships smooth out. Tension lessens. You make fewer mistakes, need fewer repairs, and earn deeper trust. Not because you're trying to be proper, but because your very presence has changed. It radiates a peace that naturally softens those around you. The Buddha taught that morality, shla concentration, samadhi, and wisdom prajna support one another. Relaxation does not violate morality. On the contrary, keeping precepts is easier when the mind is free from greed, anger, and ignorance. Concentration deepens when there is no strain. Wisdom shines when we stop trying to figure out and simply see clearly. Relaxation is not abandoning discipline or right effort. When the body and mind grow lazy, diligence is needed. When relaxation slips into carelessness, precepts are needed. The essence is harmony, not force, adjustment, not suppression. Like a musician tuning a string, not too loose, not too tight. Only at the right tension does the sound become full and pure. You know exactly what you're doing, yet you keep an inner rhythm of ease. You stay focused without tension, wholehearted without strain. In every meeting, every conversation, you remain gentle in contact, but firm in boundaries. When something goes wrong, you don't overreact or rush to control. You adjust softly like a craftsman who knows precisely when to add, when to pause. And at the end of the day, what remains is not exhaustion, but deep peace. Because you no longer force life to deliver outcomes, you simply act wholeheartedly in awareness and let results unfold naturally, like flowers blooming in their season. That is the art of effortless action, where effectiveness arises from calm, not from struggle. People often believe that only through great effort can they be worthy of recognition. That belief binds self-worth to outcomes and breeds controlled tension and fear, as if failing to push hard enough means losing value. But Zen teaches the opposite. Relaxation is the doorway to wisdom. When the mind is wide and bright, seeing becomes clear and action becomes natural, skillful, effortless. Not controlling doesn't mean giving up. It is right effort, acting rightly, sufficiently, and timely. When there's no force, energy isn't wasted on resistance, it flows in harmony with what's happening. And in that harmony, effectiveness arises naturally, light, subtle, yet deeper than any strained effort. Mindful living in practice. Before responding to anything, pause for 3 deep breaths. Each inhale brings you back to the body. Each exhale releases reaction. At work, 80% is enough. Don't let the perfectionist 20% drain your energy. Create small pauses throughout the day, a few moments to stand, relax, your shoulders breathe again. When the mind races ahead, anchor it back to body and breath. And in whatever you do, making tea, washing dishes, folding clothes, act in the spirit of effortless mindfulness. Do fully without strain, without grasping at results. That's how you return to the natural flow, where everything unfolds lightly yet deeply. When you stop trying to control, you'll see that life already has its own order. We don't need to push, only to move in step, harmonizing our energy with its current. From there, action becomes light yet profound, and effectiveness far surpasses any strained effort. You can begin tonight. When the urge to rush arises, smile and exhale. Say 1 sentence less, move 1 beat slower, release 1 rigid expectation. Just 1 small step, and you'll hear the weight inside begin to drop. And when you stop forcing, peace will have a place to stay. That is also the moment when wisdom quietly opens its door. When striving ceases, the mind becomes still and vast, revealing a deep truth. Nothing happens in isolation. Everything is the meeting of countless causes and conditions. Seeing this, the urge to control fades, the habit of blaming dissolves. We no longer grip life, we begin to converse with it through understanding. In the Buddha's teaching, nothing exists on its own. Every event, every emotion, every pain or joy is the result of countless intersecting causes and conditions. This is called dependent origination. The fundamental principle that explains why everything in life is interconnected, why nothing is independent. Nothing stands alone. Many people ask the Zen master, "Why do I suffer? I've tried to live well, yet I'm still misunderstood, betrayed, and hurt." The master smiles. No suffering ever arises from a single cause. It is a combination of many seeds, actions, words, thoughts, and even factors beyond your control. A single raindrop cannot create a storm. One person cannot bear the entire responsibility for a collapse. When we deeply understand this, the heart softens. We stop searching for someone to blame, stop torturing ourselves, because when we blame, we separate ourselves from the flow of dependent origination, the flow in which everything is constantly forming and transforming together. The Buddha once taught in the Samyukta Agama Sutta, "When this exists, that exists. When this ceases, that ceases." A short sentence, yet it contains the entire map of the spiritual universe. When we truly see this principle, we no longer cling to a fixed point of judgment. We begin to see everything through the lens of co-arising and co-dissolving. Happiness and suffering, birth and death do not exist apart. They depend on one another to be. Look at a blooming flower. It cannot exist by the seed alone. It needs soil, water, sunlight, and the caring hand of a gardener. Without one of these conditions, the flower cannot appear. Your life is the same. Joy and sorrow are not caused by one person or one event. They are the result of thousands of interacting conditions, from the environment, moods, memories, to unseen karmic threads you may not even know. When you truly understand dependent origination, you stop seeing life in two opposing colors, black and white, right and wrong, good and bad. You begin to recognize the interdependence of all things, that others too are shaped by countless causes and conditions, just as you are. No one is perfect, and no one is free from the law of cause and effect. And this realization doesn't make the world colder. It makes you more compassionate. The greatest suffering of humankind is the mind's desire to find someone to blame. When we are in pain, instinct makes us say, "I suffer because of them. I lost because of the situation." But the Buddha taught, when the mind still blames, wisdom cannot arise. For one who blames has not yet seen the vast web of interconnection, still trapped in the narrow view of me and them, the doer and the sufferer. To see dependent origination is to see beneath the surface. When someone says something that hurts, you don't stop at what they said. Look deeper. Perhaps they are driven by their own anger, or perhaps an old wound in you makes you sensitive to that word. Both are small pieces of the greater web of causes and conditions at work. No one is the absolute culprit. No one is the absolute victim. When you can see life through the lens of dependent origination, anger dissolves, understanding grows, and compassion blooms. Because you realize within every pain already lies the seed of understanding and love. All you need is to pause, breathe, and look deeply into the cause. In Zen practice, there is a simple yet profound method that opens the door to wisdom. It is called observing conditions. When a strong emotion arises, anger, fear, or jealousy, instead of reacting immediately, pause, take a deep breath, and ask silently, where is this emotion coming from? What is feeding it right now? Just these two questions, when asked in stillness, can shine light to the roots of your mind. You begin to see layers of hidden causes, forgotten memories, repeated patterns of reaction, old fears that were never understood. or even unconscious influences beyond your awareness. When the light of mindfulness shines on them, those emotions lose their power, just as darkness disappears when light enters a room. Anger doesn't need to be destroyed. It only needs to be understood. Fear doesn't need to be resisted. It only needs to be seen clearly. When you see to the root of an emotion, it no longer controls you. It becomes a silent teacher, showing you where your heart is not yet free. Practicing observing conditions is moving from reaction to awareness. Instead of letting emotions drive you, you turn to observe them. Every word, every action becomes an opportunity to look inward. Through this process, karma is transformed not by suppression, but by the light of understanding. Understanding dependent origination is not about analyzing the past or finding excuses for fate. Its true purpose is to free the present. When you understand that everything arises through conditions, you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and begin asking, "What is this teaching me?" That question marks a turning point in consciousness. Why keeps you trapped in cause and effect, always looking outward for reasons, always seeing yourself as the victim? But what can I learn from this? Frees you from that circle, turning you into the observer, the awakened one. From then on, you are no longer defined by circumstances, but become the one who sees, who understands the nature of suffering itself. The Buddha said in the Majjhima Nikaya, "He who sees dependent origination sees the Dharma. He who sees the Dharma sees the Tathagata." It means, when you truly perceive dependent origination, you see truth unfolding in every breath, every feeling, every relationship. When the mind reaches that insight, there is no more room for anger, resentment, or blame, only stillness, clarity, and compassion. For one who understands dependent origination knows no one is the enemy. No one is the sole cause of pain. Everything is part of a flowing web of conditions, where each person and each event contributes to our awakening. When you look at life with those eyes, every pain becomes a lesson. Every turmoil becomes an opportunity, and every moment becomes a path back to inner wisdom. In a world that is constantly changing, understanding dependent origination teaches you how to live lightly amid change. When you truly see that everything exists in mutual dependence, you stop asking who's right, who's wrong, and start asking what brought us here. When a relationship cracks, instead of drowning in blame, look deeper. Did we lack listening, patience, or did outside conditions beyond our control also play a part? With the vision of dependent origination, you are no longer trapped in resentment. Instead of trying to change others, you learn to adjust yourself to plant new wholesome causes so new conditions can arise. That is the art of living mindfully, to live in the world without running away or condemning, but to use every situation, every conflict as a mirror of the mind. Each event comes not to make you suffer, but to help you look deeper within. You can practice this in daily life. When someone irritates you, don't react right away. Take a deep breath and ask, where does this irritation come from? From them or from my own unmet expectations? Just pausing to look like that, the heart begins to open. You'll see the other person is only part of the cause, And you too have inner seeds contributing to that feeling. When sadness arises, sit quietly. Feel it like a wave rising and receding. Don't fight it. Don't try to escape. Look within what beliefs, memories, or desires are feeding this wave. If you stay still long enough, truth will naturally reveal itself. In that seeing, you return to freedom. To understand dependent origination is not to accept everything as fate, but to recognize the power of transformation. If all things arise from causes and conditions, then by planting new causes, new conditions will come. When you choose to plant wholesome seeds, to speak truthfully, to act with compassion, to live mindfully, you are reshaping the entire network of conditions around you. Good people will appear, bright opportunities will unfold, and old karma, like morning mist under sunlight, will gradually dissolve. The Buddha taught, all phenomena arise from causes and conditions, and all phenomena cease through causes and conditions. This means suffering is not eternal. Nothing binds you to pain except your own mind. With just one mindful breath, you are already creating a new condition, a condition of understanding, of letting go, and of true freedom. Right here, right now. When you see that everyone is conditioned by countless causes and effects, you become less harsh, less judgmental, more compassionate. Those who hurt you are also trapped in their own web of conditions, driven by fear, craving, and ignorance. Seeing this, your heart softens not out of weakness, but from deep understanding. Compassion is not pity. It is the wisdom that knows we are all learning to awaken within imperfect circumstances. Understanding dependent origination is the beginning of wisdom, but to truly touch liberation, you must learn the art of letting go. Not letting go as surrender, but letting go in awareness where the mind stops at the right moment and allows life to unfold naturally. Let go of fixed expectations like, they must understand me. Life must be fair. This must go according to my plan. These musts are the roots of suffering. When you believe the world should revolve around your desires, your mind instantly becomes a prisoner of resistance. Letting go also means releasing the view of, I'm right, you're wrong. In every conflict, the ego wants to win, to be acknowledged, to be right. But in the light of dependent origination, no one is entirely right, no one entirely wrong. Each person is merely reflecting their own conditions. When you see this, your heart naturally softens. Anger dissolves, resentment fades, and what remains is an open, compassionate view. Letting go also means giving up the habit of controlling outcomes. Life doesn't need your grip, it only needs your full presence. Every time you release a little control, you create more space for wisdom to move. In that space, action becomes clear and free from greed, anger, and delusion. You still act, but with lightness. You still strive, but not to prove. This is the spirit of Wu Wei. Acting without forcing, doing without clinging to the doer. As your insight into dependent origination deepens, your heart becomes light as wind. No more who's right, who's wrong. No more I'm the victim, they're the cause. Only the flow of causes and conditions, and you learning to move with it in mindfulness. Then every challenge ceases to be punishment and becomes a lesson in understanding. You begin to live with a mind that is clear without judging, soft without weakness. To understand dependent origination is to return to the truth. Everything is impermanent, interlinked, and nothing exists alone. Seeing this, you stop condemning, stop clinging, stop resenting, because you understand that everyone is still learning, including yourself. And in that moment of release, peace quietly blooms like a lotus rising from the mud, needing neither to avoid nor to complain about the mud, simply opening silently toward the light. That is the state of a mind that has truly seen dependent origination, not controlling, not forcing, not fleeing, just quietly shining in its own stillness. There is a way of living that is both delicate and profound, simple yet hard to reach. It is the art of seeing things as they truly are. In Buddhist teachings, this is called suchness tathata, the direct seeing of reality as it is without addition, without subtraction, without coloring, without labeling. Suchness is not an abstract philosophy. It is the ability to perceive life without the interference of the mind that distorts what is seen. It is to refrain from quickly judging something as good or bad, gain or loss, right or wrong. It is to stop demanding that life must follow the script we want. All suffering in truth begins from a small phrase we silently repeat to ourselves. It should have been different. Just that single thought is enough to split life in two. On one side, the reality that is. On the other, the version we wish it to be. The farther those two sides drift apart, the tighter the mind becomes, the greater the resistance, and the faster peace retreats. But when you can tell yourself, it is like this, not with resignation, but with a heart that accepts reality as it is, then resistance dissolves and peace blooms right in the present moment. In the scriptures, suchness is described as the mark of true seeing, yathabhutanyana dasana, the direct insight into phenomena as they truly are, impermanent, selfless, and dependent on causes and conditions. Put simply, it means seeing things arise, abide, and pass away without interference. To practice the seeing of suchness, we must learn not adding, not subtracting, not adding judgment or assumption. They must be looking down on me. This will definitely fail. Not subtracting, not omitting facts just to protect your belief. I'm right. I don't need to listen to anyone. Suchness is pausing and observing directly, so that sound is just sound, sensation is just sensation, and thought is just thought arising and fading, like clouds drifting across the sky of the mind. The seeing of suchness is not cold or indifferent. On the contrary, it is deeply awake and luminous. One who sees with suchness still acts, but action arises from wisdom and compassion, not from fear or stubbornness. Thus, suchness does not make us passive. It frees the energy trapped in resistance, allowing us to act precisely, wisely, and sufficiently. But humans have a habit of labeling everything. From childhood, we're taught, only success is worthy. Losing face is failure. Control means safety. So when something doesn't go our way, the brain immediately switches to alarm mode, releasing stress hormones and sending us into reaction before we can truly see. Modern psychology calls this confirmation bias. We look only for evidence that supports our existing belief and catastrophizing, exaggerating the threat until we lose the bigger picture. When these two mechanisms are active, We stop seeing the event and only see our story about it. That's why suffering doesn't come from what happens, but from the way we interpret what happens. Suchness is the stopping of that story. When we return to the present moment, to the breath, the sounds, the sensations in the body, the brain shifts from survival mode to regulation mode. The prefrontal cortex, the center of reason and self-control, lights up while the amygdala, the center of fear and reactivity, calms down. The mind opens space for clarity. And to avoid confusion, it's important to distinguish resignation from suchness. Resignation means giving up, shutting down responsibility, letting life drag you along. Suchness means acknowledging reality as it is, then responding appropriately with wisdom and compassion. A rainstorm comes. Resignation says, "Why does it have to rain right now?" Suchness recognizes the rain, opens an umbrella, or changes plans without resenting the rain. Someone is rude. Resignation endures it in silence. Suchness acknowledges the hurt, maintains healthy boundaries, and speaks the truth calmly. Suchness is living in the middle way, neither blind resistance nor indifferent detachment. See things as they are, act as much as is needed. When you live like this, you no longer try to bend life to your liking. You learn to stand steady in life with a clear mind. Rain still falls, people still change, life still moves, but inside you, the sky remains clear. The Buddha once compared suffering to two arrows. The first arrow is the natural pain, things that happen beyond your control, being misunderstood, work delayed, body tired. The second arrow is the mind's reaction. It shouldn't be like this. I can't accept this. The first arrow is unavoidable in life, but the second arrow, we shoot ourselves. And it is that second arrow that makes the pain deeper and last longer. Practicing suchness is pulling out the second arrow. It doesn't deny real pain, but it stops at pain. Is pain without adding, "Why must this happen to me?" When resistance drops, energy is freed for care adjustment and wise action. We stop fighting reality and learn to move with it through understanding. Applying suchness on 3 levels: body, feeling, mind to body, physical sensations. When you notice tension, don't rush to analyze why. First, return to the body. Feel your shoulders tightening, your jaw clenching, your abdomen holding. Inhale, know you're inhaling. Exhale, release gently. Just 1 or 2 minutes, and the nervous system calms, the mind clears, and you begin to see things more clearly. B. Feeling. Pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Label. The feeling simply unpleasant, pleasant, neutral. Just name it. Don't judge or interpret. When you apply a neutral label, you cut the bridge between emotion and impulsive reaction. At that moment, you're no longer carried away by the feeling, you become the observer of it. See mind, thoughts and emotions. See a thought as just a thought. See an emotion as just an emotion. Do not contract yourself into them. Do not say, "I am a bad person." Simply recognize a thought saying, "I am bad," has just arisen. That tiny gap between I am and a thought is arising. That is suchness in motion. It is the space of inner freedom. The 3 steps of see: acknowledge, soften. Step 1. See. Pause for 3 slow breaths. Bring attention to your 5 senses. What are you hearing, seeing, touching, smelling, tasting? Note them exactly as they are without adding meaning. Step 2. Acknowledge. Give a short, simple name to your state: sad, anxious, tight shoulders. Whisper softly, "This is here. Simply acknowledge no judgment, no fixing. This gentle acknowledgement already begins to dissolve resistance. Step 3. Soften. Exhale longer than you inhale. Relax subtle points: eyes, jaw, shoulders, abdomen. Ask quietly, what is the smallest, most skillful thing I can do now? This question brings you back to the present, shifting your energy from reaction to mindful action. These 3 simple steps clear the path for wisdom. When resistance falls away, natural action appears. Meditation does not ask you to become an empty being without thought. It only asks that you no longer be entangled in thought. Non-thought does not mean no thoughts exist, but not being ruled by them. Suchness sees thoughts like clouds drifting across the sky. They come, they go. No need to chase, no need to believe. Each time you pause and simply see without interfering, the sky of the mind naturally brightens again. Reality itself is pure, but we often cover it with layers of imagination, fear, and interpretation. When those layers fall away, what is becomes enough. 1 minute of mindful breathing and awareness can sometimes do more than 10 quick reactions. Because suchness is wisdom that moves slowly, it doesn't need to win an argument, it only needs to see clearly so it doesn't shoot the second arrow. Understanding suchness doesn't make us passive, it makes us clear and kind. We no longer argue with life because we know everything simply is. And within that isness, the mind settles, the breath deepens, and a quiet peace begins to bloom like a lotus opening. Silently on a windy lake. There is a way of living that seems simple, but transforms deeply to see things as they are, not adding. It should have, not subtracting. If only. When the mind stops fighting reality, wisdom and compassion naturally arise. You can begin by applying suchness in 4 ordinary moments, the 4 times when the mind most easily reacts. 1. When being criticized. The first reaction is usually heat in the face, a racing heart, shallow breath. That is the first arrow, natural discomfort. But when the mind quickly says, "How dare they talk to me like that?" that is the second arrow, resistance. Instead of striking back, pause for 3 breaths. See sensations in the body, tense shoulders, warm face. Acknowledge, discomfort is here. Soften, breathe slowly, then ask, what is the main point they're trying to express? Respond calmly. Restate what they said, thank them, and ask for time to consider. In doing so, you preserve your dignity and separate emotion from fact. Reaction becomes reflection. 2. When plans fall apart. When things don't go as expected, the usual response is tension, worry, and self-blame. But suchness invites you to see directly, resources are low. Time is tight, fatigue is present. Simply naming reality already softens half the stress. Then identify what you can control. Reset priorities. Communicate clearly. Choose one doable step. No need to strain to fix everything, just move one clear step at a time. Suchness doesn't erase difficulty, but it brings clarity in the middle of collapse. 3. When loved ones behave harshly. This is the greatest test of mindfulness. When a loved one speaks with anger, notice that both of you are tired. See sharp words, weary eyes. Acknowledge anger in me, tension in them. Soften, stay silent for 2 minutes. Breathe slowly with the body. Do not respond while the fire is burning. Speak only when the mind has cooled. I'm ready to talk when we've both calmed down. That's not avoidance. It's setting boundaries with compassion. Suchness helps us act from understanding, not from anger. 4. When blaming yourself. The mind loves to repeat, I should have, I shouldn't have. Suchness helps you see this as self-punishment. See the loop of should have. Acknowledge self-judgment is here. Soften, replace the question with, what is the smallest lesson I can learn from this? Then take one small corrective step. Make a simple commitment for next time, and let the rest go. When you release, you begin to learn. When you learn, you stop harming yourself. Suchness is not standing still. It is seeing clearly so you can act rightly. When vision is clear, compassion arises. You judge less, blame less. When you stop fighting the truth, wisdom arises. You act precisely, speak gently, move wisely. Every day repeats this rhythm. See clearly, soften, act simply. That is the shortest path out of the should have cycle. The Suchness Journal Practice. Each night take 5 to 7 minutes to write 3 lines. 1. Event describe, don't comment, late to the meeting by 15 minutes. 2. Suchness statement. Late is late. I feel uncomfortable. 3. Small step forward. Leave home. 10 minutes earlier tomorrow. If late, send a message. After 7 days, you'll notice resistance decreases, solutions increase, self-blame lessens, mindfulness grows. That's how you build the Suchness muscle, gentle but strong. Right now, try this. Inhale silently, saying no, know the breath, know what's here. Exhale silently, saying, let go of judgment, let go of should have. Repeat for 10 to 15 cycles. Each cycle is like releasing a rope you've been pulling against life. When you stop pulling, the rope softens. Peace doesn't need to be found. It's already here, waiting for you to stop struggling. Suchness as living the 4 noble truths. Suffering, dukkha, arises when reality differs from our expectations. Origin, samudaya. The root of suffering is the mind's urge to control and label everything. Cessation, nirodha. When we stop judging and stop saying it should have, suffering decreases immediately. Pathmaga. The path is mindful. Suchness, seeing body, feeling mind and phenomena clearly, and right effort correcting small things gently and consistently. Suchness in daily conduct. You listen to the whole sentence before replying. You describe first, evaluate later. When problems arise, you face facts quickly and choose one small practical step. At day's end, there are fewer should-haves more. It's okay as it is. Not because you've lowered your standards, but because you now fix only what truly needs fixing. Suchness is the art of mindful living, seeing without judging, touching truth without adding interpretation. Suffering begins with it should have. Peace begins when we say it is like this. Suchness doesn't teach resignation. It teaches acceptance and skillful action. When you practice, see, acknowledge, soften when you inhale with awareness, and exhale letting go when you keep your nightly Suchness journal. You are cultivating a mind that is clear, gentle, and steady. Then when you meet life as it is, you return to reality, its right to exist, and return to yourself, the right to rest. From that clarity, your actions arise not from resistance, but from understanding and kindness. Peace is not waiting in tomorrow, nor in a world that finally matches your wishes. It is right here in the moment you stop saying it should have been, and softly smile. It is like this. Living with Suchness requires a stable home, a rhythm of practice that anchors the mind, for without it, we easily slide back into old habits of judgment. That is why gentle discipline and ritual are needed structures that guide us back to suchness each day, like a bell reminding us to breathe a sitting period of stillness or a cup of tea sipped in mindfulness. On the path of practice, mindfulness cannot stand firm without a solid supporting frame. Many people, when first stepping onto the path of awareness, often think, to practice is to live naturally, without structure, without rules, letting everything go. Yet within that very letting go, the mind easily gets swept away like a leaf in the wind. No matter how fine the wood, a house without a frame will collapse in a small storm. So it is with the mind without ritual and discipline. Mindfulness remains a passing inspiration, lacking roots deep enough to become a way of life. When people hear the word ritual, they often imagine rigidity, distance, or religious heaviness. But in the spirit of Zen, ritual is not a chain, it is a home for the mind to return to. A morning cup of tea, a breath before sleep, a minute of stillness before starting work. These are all small rituals of mindfulness. They are like milestones in the rushing current of life, reminding us to pause, come back, and rekindle presence. In the time of the Buddha and the early Sangha, life also followed such rhythms. Morning chanting to begin the day with awareness. A pause before meals to contemplate the labor of those who cultivated the food. Evening meditation to reflect on the mind throughout the day. They did not perform rituals to prove holiness, but used ritual to keep the rhythm of mindfulness alive. Rhythm is the breath of life. When you live within rhythm, the mind does not lose its way. When rhythm is lost, the mind falls into the inertia of ignorance, running after habit, reacting blindly, forgetting to truly live. Discipline in the Dharma is not coercion, but voluntary understanding. Without discipline, mindfulness drifts with emotion. Today, you meditate because you feel inspired. Tomorrow, you skip it because you're tired. Today, you're calm. Tomorrow, you meet difficulty and forget to practice. This inconsistency keeps mindfulness from taking root. It's like learning to play an instrument. If you only practice when you feel inspired, the music will remain scattered. But if you practice your basics every day, one day, the melody will flow as naturally as breathing. Practice is the same. Discipline does not kill emotion. It transforms emotion into strength. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha said, "By oneself is evil done. By oneself one is defiled. By oneself is evil left undone. By oneself one is purified." Purity and impurity depend on oneself. No one can purify another. Discipline is not to prove something to others. It is to keep your own vow. It is how we honor the spiritual path we have chosen. A cup of tea, if drunk hastily, is just a habit. But if drunk mindfully, watching the steam rise, hearing the sound of pouring water, feeling the fragrance unfold, it becomes a ritual of meditation. Not because the tea is special, but because in every gesture you are returning to the body, the breath, the mind. Each small act becomes a form of practice. Let these simple rituals be bridges between body and mind. You don't have to search for anything far away. Each morning when you open the door, wash your face or make your bed. If done with full presence, that is Zen. Each night before sleep, take 3 slow breaths and know I am alive. That too is Zen. There is a saying in Zen, wiping the table is Zen, washing the dishes is Zen if your mind is truly there and not somewhere else. Ritual is not an outer costume. It is a bridge between daily life and awakening. Discipline is not a chain. It is the arm that keeps us from losing ourselves. When you understand this, you see, no act is small if the mind is present. No ritual is meaningless if it helps you remember that you are alive. Then every breath, every cup of tea, every repeated task becomes meditation. If mindfulness is a seed, then discipline is the soil where it grows. Without soil, the seed dries out. Without foundation, mindfulness remains a passing ideal. You may plant a seed of compassion today, but if you forget to water it tomorrow, it will wither. Discipline in practice is not harshness, but responsible care, like a gardener patiently watering each morning. In monasteries, monks keep strict schedules not out of fear, but because time itself is an expression of awareness. To rise when the bell rings is not mere obedience. It is a quiet reminder I am awake. I am here. Outer discipline is only the reflection of inner mindfulness. When you practice consistently, mindfulness becomes natural, no effort, no remembering. You no longer think about meditation. You simply sense the breath within each movement. Like a musician so skilled that the fingers find the right notes without looking. A disciplined practitioner is the same. Mindfulness becomes their rhythm of living, no longer a task to complete. At that point, ritual is no longer an external frame, but an inner breath. You no longer chant only in the meditation hall, you chant by the way you live, in each step you take, in how you listen to another, in each breath moving through the day. Every movement of the body begins to reflect the stillness of the mind. Those who don't understand Zen often think freedom means no discipline. But in truth, only those with discipline are truly free. Freedom is not doing whatever you want, but the ability to choose what's right, unbound by craving, habit, or emotion. When you are no longer driven by impulse, not addicted to sensation, not enslaved by reaction, that is inner freedom, and discipline is the path that leads there. A person who wakes early, sits quietly for 10 minutes, and turns off their phone half an hour before bed. No one forces them. Yet in those small acts, they create conditions for the body and mind to rest deeply and live fully. That is discipline born of self-respect, not discipline born of fear, but of understanding and love. Two common mistakes on the path. First mistake, being too harsh with oneself. Beginners often try to progress quickly, forcing themselves into rigid routines, mistaking strain for diligence. The result is exhaustion, tight body, weary mind, fading joy. Second mistake, being too lax. I'm too busy to meditate today. I'll practice when I feel ready. Gradually, mindfulness becomes just a beautiful idea, no longer a lived experience. The Buddha taught the middle way between these two extremes. True discipline is neither rigid nor careless. It is both firm and gentle, like the strings of an instrument, too tight and they snap, too loose and they make no sound. The wise person listens to their own inner rhythm. When the body is tired, they still sit, but shorten the session. When the mind is bright, they sit longer, add reflection. Not abandoning, not forcing. That is the art of maintaining steady practice. When discipline and mindfulness meet, a new kind of freedom arises, freedom from within. You don't need to prove diligence to anyone. You only need to keep your promise to yourself. Sit, breathe, be present. Then each morning is no longer starting a new day, but starting anew yourself. Each breath is not just air, but a small reminder I am present. I am tending to my seed. And that seed mindfulness will keep growing rooted in the soil of discipline until you yourself become a garden of peace. You don't need to be a monk to have rituals for your soul. No matter how busy life is, you can create 5-minute mindfulness rituals, pauses that let the mind breathe. Morning before touching your phone, sit quietly, take 3 slow breaths, and smile gently. No need to force stillness, just be present. That moment is like warming up the mind, so the day begins with clarity, not rush. Midday before eating, look at your meal. Recognize the hands that planted, harvested, cooked, and carried it. 1 second of gratitude calms the nervous system. You are not just eating, you are connecting with the web of life. Evening before sleep, relax the body, feel the breath rising and falling like ocean waves. No need for ceremony, just release each layer of tension from the day. These 3 small moments, morning, noon, and night, are enough to become your anchors of awareness amid a busy life. Kept regularly, they generate a quiet, sustaining energy within the energy of discipline in mindfulness. If you live with others, family, colleagues, or fellow practitioners, try creating shared rituals, a minute of silence before meals, 10 quiet minutes in the morning without conversation, or an evening bell of meditation. These small rituals form a collective field where one person's calm gently influences another. When many people turn toward mindfulness together, the shared atmosphere becomes warm, still, and deep awareness spreading like the scent of tea in a silent room. Through daily repetition, you will see the quiet power of consistency. No need to strain or set lofty goals. Just keep rhythm a little each day, like water flowing over stone, soft but steady. One morning, when an unexpected challenge arises, you'll notice you no longer react as before. The mind remains steady, the breath, even the words gentle. Not because you tried to stay calm, but because calm has become the mind's habit. That is the power of discipline, the strength of an inner structure. According to Buddhist teaching, mindfulness, sati concentration, samadhi, and wisdom, panya, are the 3 steps of enlightenment. Mindfulness helps you remember yourself. Concentration keeps the mind stable. Wisdom illuminates reality. But mindfulness cannot last without structure, and concentration cannot deepen without rhythm. Ritual and discipline are the means that hold mindfulness and nurture concentration. When both are mature, wisdom naturally blooms like a lotus rising from the water. Thus, discipline does not take away freedom. It is the path that leads to it, the freedom of wisdom, the freedom of the heart. When you live with rhythm, mindfulness, and small rituals of return, every moment in life can become a quiet meditation. Even in the noise of the world, you can still hear the breath of peace within you. When emotion surges or anxiety rises, what keeps you grounded is not lofty philosophy, but the small habits you've trained into your daily life. The body remembers to sit still. The mind remembers to breathe. The body slows down. The voice softens naturally. That is the quiet strength of steady practice, not dramatic, but enduring like a heartbeat. No one can stay peaceful forever, but a disciplined person always knows the way back. Those without structure are swept away whenever storms come. Discipline is the anchor, not the chain. When you practice regularly, even for just 5 minutes a day, the mind begins to trust itself to know When storms come, I still know how to return. That trust doesn't come from books or teachers, but from lived experience, from hundreds of times you've sat down, breathed, and moved through your own waves. That trust is the foundation of inner strength, the root of freedom, because freedom doesn't come from avoiding waves, but from the ability to stand firm within them. Remember, ritual is the home of the mind, the place you can return to for shelter. Discipline is the frame that helps mindfulness endure not a brief spark, but a lifelong rhythm. Discipline doesn't bind you. It frees you because it keeps you from being tossed around like a leaf in the current. Small daily rituals. 5 minutes of sitting a deep breath before speaking. Gratitude before eating. Nourish mindfulness in all circumstances. When you become familiar with that rhythm, peace arises naturally, not as a reward for effort, but as the natural state of a trained mind. Like a seasoned sailor, unafraid of waves, because the hands have long known the oar. With ritual and discipline, the mind becomes like a lamp, steady in the wind, not because the wind has stopped, but because the flame knows how to protect its light. Each ritual, each rhythm of discipline, is a promise to awareness. You don't need anything grand, just constancy in the small things. From those small things, great freedom is born. When ritual and discipline form your foundation, the mind grows stable. And only then do you begin to see the next subtle layer of suffering expectation. For even with practice, as long as you still want life to follow your will, the heart will remain weary. Perhaps all of us have had days like this, when everything we thought we had in our hands suddenly falls apart. A relationship we believed would last quietly comes to an end. A plan we devoted our heart to collapses right before our eyes. And in those moments, the question often rises within, why is life treating me this way? But life betrays no one. What hurts us is not the event itself, but the image we silently built inside the perfect picture of how things should unfold. And when life refuses to follow that script, we call it failure. The Buddha taught that all suffering arises from craving and clinging from the habit of wanting to hold to control, to make things go our way. When we tie our happiness to the condition, things must go as I wish, we imprison our minds within disappointment. Because life is impermanent, people change, circumstances shift, seasons turn. Only the grasping mind insists on staying the same. In psychology, this is called the gap between expectation and reality. The distance between what I thought would happen and what is actually happening. The wider that gap, the deeper the pain. In Buddhism, this is dukkha, the suffering born from resisting the ever-changing nature of life. Many people fear that letting go of expectations will make life shallow without purpose. But letting go of expectations is not letting go of effort. It is learning how to act with clarity, without obsession over results, without measuring your worth by success or failure. You can still plant seeds, but without forcing the flowers to bloom on your schedule. You can still love, but without demanding that others love you back in the way you imagined. You can still work, but without making outcomes the only condition for peace. To live without expectations is to open yourself to reality. Instead of demanding, you learn to listen. Instead of bending the river to your will, you allow it to flow naturally and learn to swim in it with awareness. When you stop asking life to please you, life stops being a betrayer and becomes a teacher. Every failure, every loss, every wrong turn is teaching one lesson. Peace doesn't come from making things go your way. It comes from accepting them as they are. One of the deepest Zen practices is shifting from wanting to receiving. From I want peace to peace is already here in this moment. From I want them to change to they are as they are, and I am learning to understand that. The moment you turn what I want into what is, your mind relaxes. Resistance dissolves and wisdom begins to function. That is true freedom. Freedom from dependency on results. Freedom from the loop of only when will I be okay. In the middle-length discourses, the Buddha said, "Nothing belongs to me. Nothing must be as I wish, for all phenomena are impermanent, dependent, and cannot be held." When you truly understand this, life becomes lighter. You still act, strive, and move toward goodness, but your heart is not bound by expectation. You still have aspirations, but you no longer let good things become chains. Reality doesn't come to hurt you. It comes to show you where your attachments still live. Every time life goes differently than you wish, impermanence speaks softly. Let go of what you want to see what is. Zen gives a beautiful example. A person looks into a mirror, sees wrinkles, and blames the mirror for being distorted. But the mirror only reflects truth. Life does the same. It reflects your mind. If you grow angry at the reflection, you're arguing with the mirror. When you stop arguing, the mirror reveals this is you, and this is where to look deeper. In that moment, suffering softens. In Buddhist thought, expectation is a subtle form of craving, tanha, the wanting, the grasping, the wishing for things to be otherwise. It often hides inside harmless-looking thoughts, I'll be happy if, I'll be at peace when. But behind them lies a trap, conditional happiness. Modern psychology calls this conditional happiness, when your joy depends on external variables, a person, a job, an achievement, a fragile if. And when that condition changes, as all things do, your balance disappears. Buddhism goes straight to the root. Seek happiness that is not conditional. Not by denying emotion, but by mindfulness, by seeing clearly, understanding deeply, and releasing the grip. Peace doesn't come when things go your way. It comes when you no longer need them to. And in that very moment when you stop seeking, demanding, and fixing, your heart opens like a lake settling after the wind. That is true peace, born not of conditions, but of insight. Not, I'll be at peace when, but peace is here in this very moment, when I no longer need anything different. In this ever-changing life, sometimes what you need is not to try harder, but to pause and let go of expectations. Not to give up dreams or effort, but to release the musts that exhaust the heart. Step 1. Recognize it. Whenever disappointment arises, pause and ask yourself, what exactly isn't going the way I wanted? Write it down. Simply seeing the expectation already takes you halfway toward letting it go. What we don't see controls us. What we see clearly we begin to master. Step 2. Observe your reaction. When you feel disappointed, don't pretend to be fine or suppress your feelings. Feel it in the body, the tightening chest, the heavy stomach, the short breath. Just breathe with it. Don't analyze or judge. Emotions don't need to be destroyed. They dissolve when understood through silence and awareness. Step 3. Change the question. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What can I learn from this?" The first question keeps you a victim. The second opens the door to awakening. When the mind moves from complaining to observing you, step out of the maze of suffering into the light of wisdom. Step 4. Accept impermanence. When things don't go as you wish, gently remind yourself, "This too shall pass." That's not comfort, it's universal truth. Nothing stands still. Weather changes, people change, emotions flow. When you truly understand impermanence, you stop fighting the current and feel light as a drifting cloud. Step 5. Act clearly without attachment. Letting go of expectations doesn't mean giving up or being passive. You still act, love, and engage, but with a clear mind, not clinging to results. That's egoless action, doing your duty without being trapped by success or failure. At work, focus less on the outcome and more on the quality of your presence. When you give your best to the moment, results naturally improve and your heart stays calm. In love, don't expect others to make you happy. See them as mirrors of your inner world. Every emotion they bring, pleasant or painful, is a lesson in self-understanding. In family life, letting go of expectations isn't indifference. It's recognizing your own and others' limits. When you stop demanding that loved ones understand, obey, or agree, affection becomes natural, warm, unforced. In meditation, many seek peace, yet that very seeking prevents peace. The Buddha taught, "Don't strive to attain concentration, just stop the wandering mind." True stillness doesn't come from forcing, it comes from non-grasping. When the mind is no longer pulled by what I want, peace arises naturally. Letting go of expectation doesn't weaken you, it sets you free. Because you no longer let your happiness depend on anything. When you truly release expectation, something miraculous happens. You return to life the right to be natural. You no longer force the river to flow your way. You no longer demand that things unfold on schedule, by formula, or according to plan. Instead, you learn to move through impermanence with quiet trust, trusting that life, even in its turning, has its own order. In the Lotus Sutra, the Buddha said, "All phenomena are like dreams, illusions, bubbles, dew, and lightning." This isn't an invitation to deny life, but to see through the illusion of control. Because if everything is as fleeting as mist, trying to hold it forever is like gripping your own breath. The tighter you hold, the faster it escapes. When you see this clearly, you stop clinging to what isn't real. You still live, act, and love, but lightly, like a cloud crossing the sky. Mindfulness is the lamp that reveals desire the moment it arises. When the mind begins whispering, "If only," "I wish," "It should have," just smile and breathe, "I hear you, but I don't need to believe you." That simple phrase holds the strength of awakening, not suppressing desire, but recognizing it as a passing wave on the surface of the mind. You don't need to fight or chase. Just observe, just breathe, just see. And within that seeing, freedom blooms, freedom amid all wanting. Try this simple practice whenever you feel disappointed or upset because life didn't go your way. Breathe in, notice the tension. Breathe out, release the expectation. Breathe in, accept what is. Breathe out, smile at reality. After just 3 such breaths, you'll feel your heart soften, as if someone had untied the invisible knot around your chest. That ease doesn't come from outside, but from ending the war within. People often believe happiness comes when everything goes right. But the Buddha taught the opposite. True happiness comes when you are no longer ruled by how things go. A person can live amid chaos, unfinished work, changing relationships, uncertain conditions, and still be peaceful because they no longer set conditions for peace. When the mind stops resisting, life becomes light. When the mind stops demanding, love becomes whole. There is no one left to blame, no one left to disappoint. Because expectation is the root of disappointment, it runs against impermanence itself. Letting go of expectation is not abandoning effort. On the contrary, it is acting with awareness, doing your part fully, but not being bound by outcomes. When you stop demanding success, creativity flows naturally. When you stop fearing failure, wisdom reveals itself. In a mind that holds nothing, everything unfolds perfectly. Remember, every time reality goes against your will, it's not punishment, it's a lesson in letting go. Life doesn't come to break you. It comes to show you where you're still rigid. So practice 3 releasing breaths each day. 3 breaths to return to the present where everything is already enough. Nothing to add, nothing to fix, only to see clearly. When you learn to live without expectation, you return to life its right to simply be, and return to yourself the right to be at peace. Expectation is the invisible rope that binds the heart. Letting go of it opens the door to freedom. And when that door opens, you realize something simple yet profound. You don't need life to change. When your way of seeing changes, the whole world becomes lighter. And when you have truly released expectation, you'll see one layer deeper still. It's not only about letting go of what you want, but also about no longer fighting what you fear. There is something very strange. Most human suffering doesn't come from what is happening, but from how we resist what is happening. We don't suffer simply because we are hurt. We suffer because we cannot accept that we are hurt. We aren't tired only because of too much work. We are tired because we refuse to admit that we are tired. What traps us in the cycle of suffering is not the situation itself, but the quiet resistance within the mind. Look at nature. Water never fights the rock. It simply flows around it. Trees don't resist the wind, they bend so they won't break. Only humans try to fight life, believing that if we don't win, we'll be swallowed whole. But in truth, the very moment we stop fighting life becomes gentle again. It's not the world that changes, it's our way of seeing that does. Once we stop trying to force life to match our will, everything returns to its natural order. The Buddha once said, Nothing is more frightening than a mind that cannot accept. When the mind resists, energy drains away. When the mind flows with what is that same energy, transforms into peace. Most of us live like someone clutching the string of a kite, afraid it might fly away. The tighter we grip, the more our hands ache. But peace doesn't come from control. It comes from harmony with the flow of the present moment. Reality isn't against us, it simply is. And while we try to bend it to fit our shape, we miss the life unfolding right now. Just like in a rainstorm, the wise don't curse the sky. They open an umbrella or step under shelter. Resistance doesn't stop the rain, it only keeps us wet longer. Life is the same. It doesn't win or lose to us, it just keeps flowing. And while we're busy fighting, what is we forget? The most precious thing of all. We're alive. In Zen, there is a saying, when we stop forcing, all things naturally harmonize. Meditation is not to master life, but to see that life was never meant to be mastered. We can't control the waves, but we can learn to ride them with a peaceful mind. When the mind stops resisting, the energy of life begins to flow naturally again. The body relaxes, the breath deepens, the voice softens, and wisdom begins to bloom. You see that you don't have to win at life to be at peace. Peace is not in victory, but in harmony with what is. Observe yourself through one simple day. When plans are delayed, do you resist or accept? When someone misunderstands you, do you tense up or listen? When you're tired, do you push harder or allow yourself to rest? Your answers don't just define your attitude, they shape the entire energy of your life. To flow with life doesn't mean to give up. It's the wisdom to know what can be changed and what must be accepted. Those who know how to flow are not swept away by life, they move with life with awareness. In a mindful breath, we realize we don't need to fix reality to end suffering, only to stop resisting it. We don't need life to change, only our way of seeing it. Because when the mind stops forcing, life naturally becomes harmonious. And in that harmony, we finally understand what the Buddha meant. No one saves us but ourselves. No one except the mind that knows how to release, to yield, and to smile at impermanence. In the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha taught that the origin of suffering is craving, attachment, and resistance. Craving has two faces: the desire to hold what we like and the urge to reject what we dislike. Both are subtle forms of resistance. When we like, we cling. When we dislike, we push away. Yet in both, the mind is restless. Liberation doesn't come from holding on to the pleasant, but from seeing beyond both liking and disliking. The Buddha didn't teach us to change the world, he taught us to change our relationship with the world. When the mind no longer divides things into good or bad, gain or loss, everything naturally returns to balance. That is nirvana within daily life, where there is no resistance, no grasping, only seeing and understanding. A student once asked a Zen master, "Why does life keep testing me?" The master smiled and said, "Life isn't testing you. Life is reflecting you. Reality isn't trying to hurt anyone. It simply mirrors the parts of us not yet at peace. When we fear losing, life gives us a chance to learn letting go. When we fear loneliness, life opens a space for us to listen to ourselves. Every time we resist, the lesson repeats, but once we open, the lesson dissolves. Psychology calls this psychological resistance. When we reject our emotions, they don't disappear. They sink into the subconscious, turning into anxiety, depression, or chronic fatigue. Buddhism saw this over 2,500 years ago. Acceptance is the shortest path to peace. Not because we control everything, but because we stop struggling against ourselves. The more we resist, the more illusions arise. The more we flow, the clearer the wisdom becomes. Like a river, water doesn't fight the rock, yet it softens it through patient flowing. When we stop resisting life, we begin truly living not a perfect life, but a life with inner freedom. No longer clinging to what's pleasant, no longer fearing what's painful. We see that every experience, joy or sorrow, gain or loss, is just another wave on the vast ocean of the mind. When we stop dividing experiences into what should happen and what shouldn't, we touch the natural peace that no one can give or take away. Letting go of resistance is not surrender. It is the awareness of understanding. To know that life doesn't need to be controlled for us to be happy. We only need to accept it and flow with it. And in that very moment, when we stop struggling with what is, the mind becomes transparent and wisdom blossoms. To truly let go of resistance, you must first see that you are resisting. Most people never notice it. They only feel tension, irritation, or the urge to escape discomfort. But the moment you pause, breathe, and whisper, "This too is part of life," that's when resistance begins to melt. Breath is the doorway back to the present. When you breathe deeply, the mind relaxes. When the mind relaxes, truth reveals itself. You don't need to analyze or fix, just let reality speak for itself. When a strong emotion arises, anger, sadness, fear, don't suppress it or wish it away. Just observe it, like someone standing on the riverbank, watching water flow by. That is the art of meditation, to live in the current of life without being swept away by it. Once a meditation student said, "I meditate every day, but my heart is still full of storms. How can I find peace?" The master smiled. "Look at the river. It doesn't need to stop the wind to stay clear. Water doesn't wait for the wind to settle before becoming calm. It is clear because it lets the wind pass through." The human mind is the same peace, doesn't come when life is calm, but when we stop resisting life. Every breath you take trains your mind to be soft like water. And water never fears falling because it knows it will return to the ocean. Likewise, when we stop fearing loss, we merge with the flow of truth, the Dharma impermanence itself. In daily life, meditation isn't in the posture of sitting, but in the smallest reactions we make. When misunderstood, instead of defending, pause and breathe. Misunderstanding is like a cloud. Time's wind will blow it away. When plans collapse, don't conclude everything's ruined. Perhaps another path is simply opening before you. When the body aches, don't treat it as an enemy. See it as life reminding you to care for body and mind. The Buddha taught, "The body is like foam, the mind like the wind." See this clearly. and all will be at peace. Each time life collides with you, instead of asking, "Why me?" ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" That question shifts the victim's mind into the awakened mind, turning pain into wisdom. Letting go of resistance is not weakness. It is the highest clarity. Only when we truly understand impermanence and interdependence can we release without fear. The wise neither force nor flee. They act with calmness and let results unfold on their own. They understand this world wasn't made for us to win, but for us to learn. And when we stop trying to win, we begin to win what matters most, ourselves. Winning over the urge to control. Winning over the fear of things not going our way. Winning over the quiet resistance that keeps the mind restless. That is the victory of freedom. Not outer freedom, but freedom in every breath. When you can let the wind pass without trembling, let the waves rise without fear, you are living in the world, yet your heart is no longer ruled by it. Each day, spend at least 10 minutes sitting still, just observing your mind. No need to achieve anything or meditate the right way. Just sit and watch. If thoughts arise, "I'm sad, I'm scared, I don't want this," gently note, "Ah, a thought is arising." Don't chase it or hold it. When you stop joining the conversation of the mind, it naturally returns to stillness. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha taught one who knows when to stop will not be shaken even in the storm. By simply seeing you step out of the role of the one being swept away. From that moment, every emotion becomes something to observe, not something to fear. A person once told a Zen master, "I tried to change others, but they remain the same." The master smiled. "Have you tried changing the way you see them?" Life flows smoothly, not because it changes, but because our minds stop demanding it to. Acceptance doesn't make us weak, it makes us awake. Awake to what's real and what's illusion. And in that awakening, suffering has no ground to stand on. Those who flow with life understand. Nothing needs to be forced, only walked through with awareness. Freedom isn't doing whatever you want. It's being unbound no matter what happens. The free person welcomes both sunshine and rain without complaint, for they know all things arise and pass through causes and conditions. When you stop resisting life, you begin to feel the calm that was always there. Amid change, you become like a stone resting at the river's bottom. The water moves, but the stone does not. That is freedom within impermanence, nirvana, within life itself. Remember these as guiding lights. Suffering doesn't come from circumstances, but from resisting them. Letting go of resistance isn't giving up, but acting with clarity and trust in causes and conditions. Peace doesn't come from control, but from acceptance. Meditation isn't escaping emotions, but seeing them clearly without being ruled by them. True freedom begins when we align with what is. And today, when something goes wrong, try these 3 small steps. Recognize I am resisting. Breathe deeply. Return to the body. Release the grip. Smile, life is teaching me how to soften. Just these 3 simple steps practiced often open a wide space in the heart. In that space, you no longer need to win, prove, or control. You simply live authentically. Freedom isn't the destination. At the end of the path, it's every step that no longer fights the path itself. When you stop battling reality becomes your most gentle teacher. It teaches you to release, to understand, and to love even what is imperfect. Life may not always be kind, but your heart can become kind. And when the heart softens, suffering finds no place to stay. Then you no longer need to seek peace elsewhere. Peace is the quiet that's already breathing within you. And when you've learned not to resist life, the path of meditation reaches its deepest point. There's nothing more to seek, nothing more to attain, only to return to yourself, still clear and free. All the efforts of meditation, all the letting go, all the moments you've stopped resisting, they all lead to one place, the home of the mind, where nothing needs fixing, only presence. At that point, meditation is no longer a method, it becomes the breath of life itself. And you who have walked through pain, craving, and struggle will finally smile and realize freedom was never at the end of the road. It was right here the moment you stopped, took a breath, and smiled. Now there is no need to rush. Allow yourself to slow down. You've traveled many inner roads, fears, attachments, things you once thought impossible to release. And perhaps now you see, letting go has never been failure. It's the highest form of awakening. Along that path, you've touched the wisdom beneath suffering. You've seen that exhaustion doesn't come from adversity, but from the quiet resistance inside. You've seen that craving, fear, and control are only garments of ignorance. And when you learn to soften, to dissolve into reality as it is, peace opens not from effort, but from no longer struggling. You've also come to understand blind striving only blinds the mind. Further, expectation is an invisible chain, and the ego is the narrow room that keeps us repeating ourselves. But when we become simple, we become clear. When we stop chasing emotions, we see them pass like rain. And when we dare to accept not knowing, we touch true freedom, for only those who don't need to know are wide enough to truly see. Then you realize even pain, loss, and death are teachers. Compassion isn't always fixing things, and patience isn't waiting. It's the quiet strength of stillness working within. Everything you've learned about letting go, seeing, and understanding leads to one truth. Life doesn't need to be resisted. It only needs to be met with full presence in each breath, each heartbeat, each moment. And tonight, as you lie down, let your body rest like a falling leaf. Let your breath return to its natural rhythm. There's nothing left to do, nothing left to figure out. Don't strain to become complete. You already are right now. Peace doesn't come when all problems end. It comes when you see you are no longer a problem. You have come home in this very breath, where life and stillness meet, where every question dissolves into silence, and only the pure presence of now remains. If these words touch, you share them not just as a reply, but as a light of mindfulness for others searching for peace. Write down one insight you've realized so that someone reading it may also see themselves in that light. And if this journey has helped you return to yourself, subscribe to Buddhism Seeds Like and share it with those who need a moment of calm in a busy world. Each comment you leave can be a seed of awakening in another's heart. Now close your eyes. Listen to your breath soft as the wind over the lake. Let your mind melt into the night like a drop of dew returning to the ocean. Everything is okay. Nothing needs to change. Sleep peacefully, deeply, lightly. Because the path was never far, it is right here. And with every breath, it is walking with you. Thank you for being here with Buddhism Seeds, where every story, every breath is a seed of awakening planted in the soul. May you have a peaceful sleep and a new morning calm, clear and full of quiet joy.